let my people go. Good. He says, let my people go, and Pharaoh says, no. Should we sing the song? Oh, listen, oh, listen, oh, listen, King Pharaoh. No? All right. No, no, no. I will not let them go. All right, come to the temple Seder, and you'll hear all the kids' songs. Now, Pharaoh says no, so God, as a way of convincing Pharaoh, gives plagues, 10 plagues. So, now in our Seder, on page 32, when Moses asked Pharaoh to free the Israelites, he refused. So God brought 10 plagues on the Egyptians. Each one frightened Pharaoh, and each time he promised to free the slaves. But when each plague ended, Pharaoh did not keep his word. It was only after the last plague, the death of the firstborn of the Egyptians, that Pharaoh agreed to let the Israelites go. We fill our wine cups to remember our joy in being able to leave Egypt. Yet our happiness is not complete because the Egyptians, who are also God's children, suffered from Pharaoh's evil ways. For those of you who were here Rosh Hashanah morning, right, this was part of my sermon, that God was upset when the angels rejoiced, when the Egyptians were drowned, because God's creation had been destroyed. So we ceremoniously, right, in a small way, symbolize that loss by giving of our wine. So the tradition is with each plague, we dip our finger in the wine and put a drop on our plate. Another tradition is not to lick your finger as much as you want to, because you shouldn't get, well, we're going to do it together. We do it with each, don't start dripping yet, because we do it with each plague. So you don't lick your finger because you shouldn't get any enjoyment from these plagues. So when we're done, we'll wipe our finger on our napkin. So we'll recite them in Hebrew and in English, and do a drop on our plate for each. So the first is dam, blood. Sfardea, frogs. Kinim, lice. Arov, beasts. Dever, cattle disease. Shchin, boils. Barad, hail. Arbet, locusts. Choshech, darkness. And Makat Bechorot, the plague or the death of the firstborn. All right, so then finally, Pharaoh says go, and we have the whole crossing of the Red Sea. Now, Behisha Amda is a nice song. We're gonna skip it tonight. That's also part of right. You got to skip something. Now, you really don't. But all right, I'm done. Page 36. We're gonna sing a little Dayenu. This is Dayenu means it would have been enough for us. And this is where we go through every stage of the miracles and say, if this had only happened, it would have been enough, but all of these other things happened. So first we'll read on page 36. Adonai took us out of Egypt, Dayenu, right? If God would have only taken us out of Egypt, that would have been enough. If God only would have punished the Egyptians and destroyed their idols, Dayenu. If God would have only divided the sea and led us across on dry land, Dayenu. If God would have only taken care of us in the desert for 40 years and fed us manna, right, that miracle food, Dayenu. If God would have only given us Shabbat, Dayenu. If God would have only brought us to Mount Sinai and given us the Torah, if God would have only brought us to the land of Israel and built the holy temple, Dayenu. But for all of these things alone and together, we say, Dayenu. God didn't just do one of these things, God did them all. And we'll sing the first verse and the chorus because everyone should know Dayenu. Ultimately, I know you don't all know it now. Ilu hotzi hotzi anu mi Mitzrayim hotzi anu mi Mitzrayim Dayenu. Here's the important part. Dayenu. powerful notes in the entire world. Because you go Dainu, and if anyone goes Dainu, then you have to again go Dainu. No? Yeah. And the goal is that you sing it enough times that finally someone says Dainu, right? Enough already. Okay. Sorry. Now, page 38. Rabbi Gamliel, who we heard about from Rabbi Bernholtz. Rabbi Gamliel said that in telling the story of Exodus, we must explain the meaning of the three most important symbols. And why are they the three most important symbols? Come on. They're the three that are in the Torah. Good. I've taught something. Without this explanation, our celebration is incomplete. Now, it starts with the shank bone, or the Pesach lamb. Now, here's our quiz, and I may have told you last week. I don't remember. We're skipping ahead. What does it say under the matzah in parentheses? Lift up the matzah, right? And in the Hebrew, this is, like I said, this is a kind of interpretive translation. It begins, this is the Pesach, right? This is the matzah. This is the maror. That's the Hebrew. Now, so the matzah, we lift up the matzah, we say, this is the matzah. The bitter herb, what does it say we do? We lift up the bitter herb and we say, this is the bitter herb. But for the Pesach, what does it say to do? Point. Why do we point to it when we say this is the Pesach instead of lifting it up? Yes, good. Good. Because I didn't kill this lamb in my backyard, right? And now that there's no temple, which there hasn't been for almost 2,000 years, there's no sacrifice in Judaism, which there hasn't been for 2,000 years, so this is not the Pesach. Thank God this is not the Pesach, right? I say that. I don't want to be killing a lamb in my backyard, okay? So we don't lift it up and say this is the Pesach because it's not. So we point to it because it symbolizes the Pesach. It symbolizes the lamb that would have been sacrificed the night before. So we point at our shank bone, at our roasted lamb's bone, and we say together, the roasted bone is called the Pesach. Together, it recalls the lamb our ancestors sacrificed and ate in the days of the temple. As a symbol on our Seder plate, it reminds us that during the 10th plague, Adonai passed over the homes of the Israelites and spared their firstborn. Right? Because in that first year, right, the original, after killing the lamb, they put the blood on their doorposts. Good. Now, this is the matzah, so we can lift up the matzah, and we read, we eat matzah to remind us how our ancestors had to leave Egypt in such haste that the dough for their bread did not have time to rise. And we do lift our maror because it is maror, and we read, we eat this maror to remind us how bitter the Egyptians made the lives of our ancestors by forcing them to be slaves. Good. Questions so far about anything we've done? Because I should have been taking questions more often. It is Passover after all. All right. Next page. Page 40. This is that verse that I told you about before our Seder. B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam nirod et atzmo ke'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. In each generation, everyone must think of himself or herself as having personally left Egypt. This is our challenge, right? This is where it might be fun to talk about at your Seders. What are we slaves to today? A tradition that I learned when I was in college, we had a Seder at our Hillel for all the college students. And when we organized, we said, send us one tradition from your home Seder so that our college Seder can have pieces from all of your Seders. And one girl wrote that they have a mirror. And on the mirror, they painted or drew an Egyptian scene, right? With pyramid and the hot sun and the sand, and they pass that mirror around so that everyone at the Seder can see themselves as if they were in Egypt. Very cool tradition. I made one, and I think I've lost it, so I have to make it another. We're getting close to our meal. The next part of the Seder is the beginning of something called Hallel. Hallel is a group of psalms that are recited on every festival. Normally in the morning. I believe this is the only time Hallel is recited at night. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure. Hallel is usually part of the morning service on the festival, but it's part of our Haggadah. We're not going to do Hallel tonight, but we will read together the English right underneath where it says Songs of Praise, and we can lift our cup. It is our duty to give thanks, sing praises, and offer blessings to the Holy One who did these miracles for our ancestors and for us, for bringing us from slavery to freedom, from sadness to joy, from darkness to light. And then we would begin our Hallel. The Hallel actually ends after the meal. The Hallel ends as a part of the third cup. It begins with the second cup, ends with the third cup. So now we're at page 42. Remember, we poured all our cup all the way at the beginning of the Magid, right before the 4 questions. We don't drink it until now. We'll read together. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who has freed us and our ancestors from Egypt and brought us here this night to eat matzah and maror. Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, help us celebrate future holidays and festivals in peace and in joy. Then we will thank you with a new song. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We praise you, Adonai, our God, who has freed the people of Israel. And we say Borei Pri Hagafen again. We'll sing it. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei Pri Hagafen. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. And we say L'chaim, and we drink our second cup, leaving enough because we need to make charoset and have our last 2 cups. All right. Now, the meal doesn't begin yet, but we start with the different parts of our Seder plate and the food. So far, all we've eaten is karpas, the parsley. Now, we're about to eat matzah for the first time. So we have our second hand washing, this time with a blessing. So, you do the washing of the hands. This also you do before you say the blessing, because the blessing doesn't say the washing of the hands. The translation is actually the lifting of the hands. So you say the blessing and kind of lift your hands a little bit as you say it so that you're doing something. Even though we're not washing our hands, let's say the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al nitilat yadayim. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who has made us holy by your mitzvot, and again commands us, this is not a good translation, commands us to wash our hands, but really, nitilat, the raising yadayim of the hands. And that's the blessing we say after our ritual hand washing, which is not just on Passover, not just on Shabbat, traditionally before any time you're going to eat bread. Okay? Then,